High in the ineffable and transcendental world of light, there existed a primal pair named Depth and Silence. Together they brought forth a perfect realm of balance and creative power, consisting of 30 archetypical forms of consciousness called aeons. The youngest and most adventurous of these, called Sophia, who was wisdom, fell in love with her own royal progenitor, the great invisible king of the all, called Depth, and wished to fathom his perennially inscrutable nature. Confused by her love, she cast her glance in various directions from her aeonal seat in the fullness, until in the distance she espied a magnificent light, shimmering with sublime grace. In her bewilderment brought about by love, she could no longer distinguish between the above and below, and thus came to assume that the seductive light, which was in reality below her, was none other than the royal effulgence of the great king, her father, who resided at the highest point of the heavens. Thus she descended into the abysmal void, where in a boundless and fathomless sea of glass, in the reflection of the heavenly light beckoned to her. Her celestial consort, Christ, was unable to restrain her, and thus, after a final, painful embrace, she plunged into the murky deep, only to discover how the reflected light had deceived her. Saddened and frightened, she found herself enclosed by emptiness, devoid of the quality and power of gnosis to which she was accustomed in the fullness. Desirous of having a kindred figure next to her, she brought forth in a virginal fashion a being whose name was Jesus. Although conceived mysteriously by her desire for her original gnosis, Jesus was nevertheless joined to a shadow of darkness, which attracted itself to him because of the malefic influences of the dark void wherein he was born. Jesus soon freed himself from his troublesome, shadowy attachment and ascended into the fullness, leaving Sophia in a state of despondency. Left outside the supernal spiritual universe, alone and comfortless, Sophia experienced every sort of psychic storm imaginable. Passion, sorrow, fear, despair, and ignorance exuded from her being like mighty clouds and condensed into the 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and air, as well as into a number of beings, which later were to be known under such names as the Demiurge and the rulers or archons, fierce and troublesome spirits one and all. The mightiest of these, a lion-faced being filled with pride and the will for power, marshaled his host of world-fashioning spirits, and out of the raw material of earth, water, fire, and air, they built a world of impressive external appearance, yet replete with great flaws, having been created in the image of its creators. Sorrow, fear, ignorance, and other painful and destructive passions were built into the fabric of this imperfect world, inasmuch as the raw material used by the fashioners originated in feelings like those experienced by Sophia. Looking down at the flawed and troubled world pridefully fashioned by her own ignorant offspring, Sophia was filled with pity for creation, and resolved to assist in such ways as would be available to her. She thus became the spirit of the world, anxiously observing it like a mother is wont to do when watching over a feeble and misshapen child. Meanwhile, in the lofty height, Jesus was anxiously observing the sorrowful fate of his mother, Sophia. He joined himself to Sophia's twin aeon, Christ, and thus became Jesus Christ, the Messiah and messenger of God. Around him rallied all the sublime and compassionate powers of the fullness, each contributing to him gifts and glories of their respective treasures. Thus, in Jesus Christ, the fullness and its powers came to be gathered together, readying him for the great act of redemption, the liberation of Sophia from her lamentable condition in the void. Ceaselessly, Sophia's supplications ascended like clouds of bittersweet incense, penetrating the recesses of the fullness, arousing the compassion of all the splendid aeonal beings who perpetually contemplate their glory in the kingdom of perfection. Through the centuries and millennia of earthly history, Sophia prayed and sorrowed over her fate and the fate of the flawed world and the sparks of light enmeshed in the nets of the rulers, who, like monstrous spiders, continue to manifest webs of a matter, emotion, and thought for the entrapment of humans. In essence, not their creation, but rather the sparks of Sophia's own higher nature infused into bodies of clay. Finally, the powers of the fullness were assembled, and having entered Jesus Christ, descended to earth to free Sophia, and thereby also to bring redemption to her spiritual children, the members of the human race. After undergoing vicissitudes visited upon him by the rulers and their deceived human minions, Jesus Christ rose triumphantly from the earth, holding Sophia by the hand. Joyously they ascended to the various heavenly mansions, knocking at the portals of the spiritual guardians, and gaining passage to ever higher and subtler regions of existence. At each of the gates, Sophia uttered great songs of praise and gratitude to the light that had saved her from the chaos of the nether regions. When the world spirit Sophia came to the borders that separated the nether worlds from the fullness, she looked down once again unto the flawed and troubled world, suspended in the void and chaos, and compassion filled her broken but now mended heart. No, she could not leave utterly behind this strange creation to its less than adequate resources. Neither could she abandon her true children, the women and men who were more intimately related to her than any other beings outside of the fullness. Thus she worked her magic and divided her nature in half, one to ascend into the aeons of fullness, there to dwell with Christ and Jesus, the other to remain in proximity to creation and continue to assist it with compassionate wisdom. Her second self, created by compassion, thus became known as Achamoth, the errant or lower one, who is still in contact with humanity in the regions of this world. It was thus that it came to pass that the universe constellated itself in 3 regions. The first of these is the sublunar or material world, ruled by a prince whom the ancients called Pan, and whom others inaccurately call the devil. This prince rules over the earth, the plants, and living creatures, and like a patient shepherd sees to it that all of these manifestations of Sophia's life may one day reach the higher worlds, no matter how far they've strayed. Not privy to the realities and designs of the mighty aeons of light, the prince of this world merely turns the great wheel of birth, death, and rebirth, hoping that if he and his flock are but able to remain within the motions of biological life, their hour of liberation will not find them past redemption. Higher, in immaterial space, is the world of soul or mind, which is ruled by the chief archon, also called the Demiurge, and having numerous names, including Yaldabaoth, childish god, and Saklas, the blind one. It is from the realm of this arrogant and power-hungry godling that many of the concepts and precepts originate that enthrall the minds and wills of humans. The blind god has a great liking for what he is pleased to call law. Rules, commandments, and regulations of all sorts are fashioned by him in order to diminish freedom, which is the birthright of the spirit. Philosophies and ideologies of diverse sorts are also placed into human minds by the Demiurge, along with greed, power, and other obsessions that becloud and vitiate the spiritual purity of men and women. Thirdly, in the world above the planets, immediately below the portals of the mighty fullness itself, is a region where Sophia Achamoth, the celestial mother and wise helper of humankind, is enthroned. With her live countless hosts of angels of light and holy and righteous souls that once occupied human bodies. This is the world of spirit, where the twin angels of human personalities also reside, and the celestial bride chamber is erected, wherein the lesser selves of humans may meet and be wedded to their spiritual counterparts, the twin angels. When humans commune with whom they envision as the goddess in her manifold aspects, it is none other than Sophia Achamoth, their wise guardian, whom they envision. Unaware of these subtle mysteries, many well-intentioned followers of the Christian revelation have come to see this form of Sophia as Mary, Queen of Heaven. It is in this manner that Our Lady Wisdom, though redeemed and having assisted Jesus Christ in the work of redemption, is not far from her children even to this day. The three cosmic regions just spoken of have their corresponding portions within the nature of the children of men. Within every human there is the material part, Hyle, derived from the kingdom of Pan, and carrying the instincts and urges of material life with the intentionality of survival and physical continuity by way of offspring. There is also a portion embodying mind and emotion, referred to often as soul or psyche. This portion is derived from the realm of the demiurge, and thus it contains more than one dangerous feature. While it is the seat of ethical awareness and calculating reason, it is also susceptible to the influences and blandishments of the rulers with their obsessive commandments, fanatical ideologies, pride, and arrogance of the soul. Third is the human spirit, pneuma, which belongs to the fullness, although it is the gift of Sophia. In most humans, this spiritual spark smolders and dreams, unconsciously awaiting the breath of the emissaries of the fullness to be fanned into effective action. This spirit is of Sophia, and through and beyond her, it is of the identical essence as the supreme king and queen, depth and silence themselves. In this embodied existence, we find some humans who may be called hyletics, who are ruled by instinct, urges, and sensations, and live largely in the realm of Pan. Others have been termed psychics, and they usually worship the demiurge as God, having no awareness of the spiritual world above. Their pride and joy are law and doctrine, and they imagine themselves as superior to other humans by virtue of their laws. So the spiritual history of humanity is largely a progression from primitive instinctuality and nature-worshipping pantheism, where Pan was Theos, to dogmatic religion and ethics, and from these the true spiritual freedom of gnosis. In order to reach the kingdom of light and become a pneumatic, the human being must have first renounced his servitude to physicality, and then, often with great difficulty, also renounce the thraldom of the demiurge and his minions in the form of ideological servitude. Ideas enslave just as much as passions, and both are obstacles to the rule of the spirit. Thus comes about the great reunification, apolytrosis, wherein humans break the shackles affixed to their bodies and minds by the rulers. Following this, there is but one great step to be taken, the bride chamber, or the transformative union of the lesser human with the overshadowing presence of the twin angel. From the heights of the material world and the peak experiences of the mind, men and women lift up their eyes and behold the everlasting hills of Sophia Achamoth's kingdom of spiritual light. The twin angel reaches down his shining arm to earth and bears the human soul aloft into the bride chamber where the spiritual union is sealed in heavenly marriage. One by one, Sophia draws her spiritual children unto herself, bidding them to join the army of the elect. Such is the gift of Sophia, drawn from the endless treasury of the light and made available to humans by way of her compassion and wisdom. She who remained faithful to the true light entreats her children to do likewise. Faithfulness to the spirit dwelling in the deepest and highest recesses of their nature will thus lead them to the renunciation of illusion in the embracing of the real.